The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It is the latest film in the Conjuring franchise and the third of the core trilogy. This one was directed by Michael Shaves, however, not by James Wan, who directed the first two, but this film takes place in the 1980s, specifically 1981, and is based on the true story of Arnie Johnson, a 19-year-old who killed his landlord because he was told the devil made him do it. And in a case which involved him basically proving to the court that happened, the Warrens come in and they say, well, this was demonic possession. He didn't actually do it out of his own intent. That was not what was supposed to happen. And this film essentially recounts that story as they're basically trying to prove to a court of law that this is a supernatural work. This is a movie that I was very interested in when it comes to the Conjuring franchise. I've been kind of on and off. I liked some of the movies that have come out in it, and I really did not like some of the other movies that came out in it. But when it comes to the two Conjuring movies before this, I loved them. And I, kind of unpopular opinion, I kind of like two more than one. And so I was very excited to see where three would go. Let's start with the positives. Once again, Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga are phenomenal. They are really the heart and soul of this series, and once again, they bring everything to the table. Their chemistry is wonderful, and they do a wonderful job. And there are some great scenes with them that are wonderfully explored too. And they are the crux of the movie. They're easily the best part of this entire film. The scares, for the most part, are fairly decent. It does rely a little bit more on jump scares, unlike the other two entries did. There are subtle moments of horror in here though, and those moments were extraordinary. There's one in particular which is in a morgue, no spoilers, but that was really cool. I really like that scene. And when the film decides to do more of that, where it's like the horror is right in front of you, but it doesn't try to do it in a way that a musical, number goes so those are really, really great moments. Or when a character sees something and there's nothing there, but then you turn around and there's someone right there and it goes, bah! Whenever horror movies do that nowadays, for some reason, I just don't quite enjoy it as much. I like it when it's more subtle and when it's sort of right in front of you the entire time, but you don't quite notice it until much later. Those are the horror moments that work for me a lot more, and Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It is filled with quite a few of those. The score by Joseph Bishara, once again, is excellent. And there is some very creepy stuff that's in here, despite the fact that I just kind of criticized sound effects here and there for a second. But I did really like the musical expertise that he brought to this movie. It's also very well shot, and visually it's pretty impressive, except for a few moments where I feel like they got a little too hands-on with the special effects, if you will. There's a few seconds which got a little goofy. We'll talk more about goofiness later in the review, but I will say my biggest praise of this movie is its pacing. It's very fast and very entertaining. It constantly keeps you on the edge. This film can be meandering, and we'll talk about that in about 5 seconds, but I did really enjoy myself the entire time that I was watching it. But it's a kind of movie where if you stop and start to think about it a little bit, you start to notice a lot of glaring issues. And I did have glaring issues even while watching the movie. My biggest issue with it is that it's very unfocused. There are about 3-4 different subplots going on in this movie, and all 4 of them are happening at the same time. And so the film constantly keeps jumping back and forth between scene from this subplot. Now there's a scene from this subplot. Now there's that subplot. Now remember about this subplot which is also going on. Now there's also that. And so the film can get very, very meandering as a result of it, and it becomes kind of scattershot. This was something that I found to be very disappointing. I just think it needed a lot more focus, and it needed some more time to breathe. And that could also do with the fact that the film is trying to do way more than it should, which I don't think it really had to, because the film had a very simple story and a premise based off of something that has already happened. And so I feel like trying to overdo it and add in extra stuff and to, kind of blur that line between reality and fiction, which the other two movies did as well. I think over here it's a little more noticeable because it starts to wreak havoc on whether or not what story the movie wants to follow at a certain point, and which story wants to follow in the way that is most compelling and the one that is essentially bringing everything together. It also leaves certain things dangling in the process, and so that can also make it feel a little bit unsatisfactory as you're approaching the finish line of the film. And like I said, things do get goofy because while the film is going for a tone of realism, especially throughout that first half, As the film progresses, it becomes more and more like a supernatural horror movie, stuff that you've seen 1,000 times before. There's a moment, especially towards the third act, actually, I think it's in the third act, where they reference very clearly, bright as day, they reference a movie, a famous horror movie, and it's regarding something a character is doing. And if you don't figure it out in the first 5 seconds, you've never seen a horror movie. That's just how I'll put it. I'll give you a hint. It may or may not be in the shelf behind me. So yeah, overall, I thought Conjuring 3 was a bit all over the place, but I still thought it was a solid enough time. I think that there are some really great elements in this. I think that Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga, once again, are the MVPs of this, and they really keep it going, even in the lowest points of the film. I found certain aspects of it to be very intriguing. I found certain moments of its execution to be really, really great. I just think the script needed more time. I think the script needed just a little extra time to breathe. If it had that, it would have been a lot better, but overall, it was fine. I'd still watch it. I'm gonna give The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It, a 7 out of 10. It's out in theaters now, and it's also available on HBO Max if you want to get a chance to see it somehow at home. You can do it that way. Guys, thank you very much for watching. Look forward to more reviews very soon. As always, if you like this, please do subscribe, and I'll see you guys at the movies.